I never thought of myself as a vindictive person. Honestly, before all this happened, I would have described myself as fairly level-headed, maybe even a bit passive when it came to confrontation. I was the sort who'd rather walk away than start a row. The one who'd bite their tongue at dinner parties when someone said something irritating. But Therese, something about watching the person you love flirt with someone else that rewires your brain in ways you don't expect. It doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual, like a slow poison working its way through your system, until suddenly you're doing things you never imagined yourself capable of. This is the story of how I became that person, and how my need for revenge didn't just ruin everything around me, it ruined me too. It started at Marcus' birthday party, one of those gatherings that's supposed to be casual, but somehow everyone ends up staying far too late, drinking far too much, and saying things they probably shouldn't. My partner Jamie and I had been together for nearly 4 years at that point, living together for 2, and whilst we weren't perfect, I genuinely believed we were solid. Wednesday survived the usual relationship hurdles, arguments about whose turn it was to do the washing up, disagreements about where to go on holiday, the occasional tense discussion about finances. Normal stuff, nothing that ever made me question whether we were meant to be together. I loved Jamie, I really did, and I thought Jamie loved me back in the same uncomplicated, reliable way. Looking back now, I realise I'd become complacent. I'd stopped paying attention to the small things, the subtle shifts in behaviour that might have warned me something was off. Or maybe I'd noticed and chosen to ignore them. Either way, that party changed everything. We arrived together, fashionably late, as always, because Jamie takes ages getting ready. The flat was already packed, music thumping through the walls, the air thick with laughter, and the sweet smell of someone's homemade cocktails that were definitely stronger than they tasted. I knew most people there, Marcus' uni mates, a few colleagues, some mutual friends from our extended social circle. It was the sort of event where you spend the first hour doing the rounds, hugging people you haven't seen in months, making small talk about jobs and holidays, and whether anyone's watched that new series everyone's banging on about. Jamie and I separated almost immediately, which wasn't unusual. Wednesday perfected the art of divide and conquer at parties. I'd chat to one group whilst Jamie worked another, and we'd reconvene later to compare notes and decide when to make our escape. It was an efficient system, one we'd developed over years of attending these sorts of things together. I was in the kitchen, trapped in a surprisingly engaging conversation about whether Newcastle United would ever actually win anything, when I noticed Jamie across the room. Not unusual in itself. I'd glance over periodically, checking in the way you do when you're coupled up at a party. But this time, something made me pause. Jamie was talking to someone I didn't immediately recognise, someone tall and attractive with that effortless style that makes you feel slightly inferior about your own clothing choices. They were standing close, closer than the crowded room necessarily required, and they were laughing. Not the polite laughter of casual acquaintance, but the kind of genuine throwing, your head back laughter that suggests real connection. Jamie's hand reached out and touched this person's arm, just briefly. A light touch. Fingers grazing forearm, lingering for maybe 2 seconds too long. Then they laughed again, and Jamie's whole face lit up in a way I hadn't seen in months. Something cold settled in my stomach. I excused myself from the football debate and moved to a better vantage point, positioning myself behind a group of people so I could observe without being obvious about it. For the next 20 minutes, I watched. I watched Jamie lean in when speaking, head tilted in that flirtatious way that used to be reserved for me. I watched the mysterious stranger mirror, Jamie's body language, the two of them creating their own little bubble, despite the chaos of the party around them. I watched Jamie laugh at something and place a hand on this person's chest. I watched them exchange numbers, phones out, fingers typing with a kind of enthusiasm that suggested this wasn't just networking. And the entire time, something dark and cold was spreading through my chest, replacing the warmth I'd felt earlier with something else entirely. Hurt, anger, betrayal, and underneath it all, a burning need to do something about it. When Jamie finally made their way back to me, all smiles and casual energy, I said nothing. Not then. I smiled back, asked if they were having a good time, suggested we grab another drink. I played the part perfectly, the unsuspecting partner, enjoying a night out. But inside, I was already planning, already thinking about how to make Jamie feel what I was feeling, how to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. It's strange how quickly your mind can pivot from love to something darker, how easily you can convince yourself that revenge is justified, even necessary. I told myself I was simply evening the score, restoring some kind of cosmic balance. I told myself Jamie deserved whatever was coming. I told myself a lot of things that made what I did next seem reasonable. Over the following days, I became someone I didn't recognize. I went through Jamie's phone whilst they were in the shower, finding dozens of messages with this person. Alex, their name was, messages that whilst not explicitly romantic were definitely flirtatious, definitely inappropriate. I noted dates and times. I screenshotted conversations. I created a folder on my laptop titled Household Bills, where I collected my evidence like some deranged private investigator, and all the while I maintained perfect normalcy. I kissed Jamie goodbye in the mornings. I asked about their day over dinner. I laughed at their jokes and suggested we watch a film together on Sunday afternoon. The performance was flawless, and whilst I was performing, I was plotting. My plan, when it finally crystallized, felt almost elegant in its simplicity. I would create a fake social media account, pose as someone interested in exposing infidelity, and anonymously send screenshots of Jamie's conversations with Alex to everyone in our social circle. ID make Jamie look like the villain, the cheater, the person who couldn't be trusted. ID ruin their reputation whilst keeping my hands clean. They'd never know it was me. ID be there to comfort them through the fallout, playing the supportive partner while secretly enjoying their humiliation. It felt like justice. It felt like power. It felt, in those moments of planning, absolutely right. I spent a week setting everything up. I created a believable fake profile, spent hours making it look authentic with a few strategic posts, and carefully selected profile photos stolen from random accounts. I crafted the perfect message, one that expressed concern and sympathy whilst including just enough detail to make the accusations credible. I made a list of everyone who needed to receive it: friends, family, colleagues. I even included Marcus, whose birthday party had been the scene of the crime. And then, on a Tuesday evening whilst Jamie was at a work event, I sent them, all of them, 43 messages in total, each one a little bomb designed to detonate Jamie's life. The response was immediate and catastrophic. By Wednesday morning, my phone was vibrating constantly with messages from friends, asking if I'd seen what was going around about Jamie. By Wednesday afternoon, Jamie came home early from work, face pale and eyes red from crying, completely blindsided by accusations coming from all directions. By Wednesday evening, Jamie was sobbing in our bedroom whilst I held them, whispering reassurances while secretly feeling a dark satisfaction that my plan had worked so perfectly. They had no idea it was me. They trusted me completely, leaned on me as the only person who believed in their innocence. And I played that role flawlessly, even as I watched their world crumble. But here is the thing about revenge: it never contains itself the way you expect it to. Within days, the situation spiraled far beyond my control. Alex, furious at being implicated in what they insisted was just friendly conversation, hired a solicitor, and started threatening legal action for defamation. Several mutual friends, uncomfortable with the anonymous accusations and mob mentality they'd created, began their own investigations into who'd sent the messages. Jamie's employer, catching wind of the drama, launched a workplace investigation that put Jamie's job at risk. And Jamie, unable to cope with the stress and humiliation, started having panic attacks so severe we ended up in A&E twice in 1 week. I watched all of this happen, still maintaining my supportive partner facade, but now feeling something new creeping in alongside the satisfaction, guilt, fear, the dawning realization that ID miscalculated badly. It took 3 weeks for everything to unravel completely. A mutual friend, Sarah, who worked in tech, managed to trace the fake account back to my IP address. She didn't confront me directly. Instead, she told Marcus, who told 2 other people, and suddenly I was watching my own social circle turn against me with the same ruthless efficiency they turned against Jamie. The irony wasn't lost on me. When Sarah finally rang me, her voice was cold in a way ID never heard before. She didn't ask why. She simply said she thought I should know that everyone knew and that she was deeply disappointed in me. Then she hung up. That was somehow worse than anger would have been. The disappointment. The quiet withdrawal of respect. Jamie found out 2 days later. ID been planning to confess, had even rehearsed what ID say. But before I could work up the courage, Marcus told them. I came home from work to find Jamie sitting on our sofa, completely still, staring at nothing. They didn't cry, they didn't shout, they simply looked at me and asked if it was true, and when I nodded, unable to form words, they stood up and said, "I need you to leave, not get out or I hate you, or any of the dramatic lines you hear in films. Just a quiet, tired request that I leave." So I did. I packed a bag and went to my sister's, and I haven't been back since. The aftermath has been brutal in ways I never anticipated. I lost Jamie, obviously. They won't speak to me, won't respond to my messages, have blocked me on everything. I lost most of our friend group who understandably sided with Jamie. I lost respect within our wider community. Word spreads fast when you've done something this spectacularly awful. I lost my own sense of self-respect too, which has been perhaps the hardest part. Every time I look in the mirror, I see someone I don't recognize. Someone capable of cruelty I didn't think I had in me. Someone who let hurt feelings and pride override basic human decency. But the worst part, the part that keeps me up at night, is what I learned after everything exploded. Those messages between Jamie and Alex, they were entirely innocent. Alex is Jamie's cousin, second cousin technically, but they'd grown up together and had recently reconnected after years of not seeing each other. The flirtation ID perceived was just their natural rapport, the ease of family members who genuinely enjoy each other's company. The touching, the laughter, the closeness. All just affection between relatives. They'd been planning a surprise party for me. My birthday was coming up, and they'd been coordinating behind my back to organise something special. All those suspicious messages were about venue bookings and guest lists, and whether ID prefer a chocolate or lemon cake. And ID destroyed it all based on my own insecurities and assumptions. Jamie wasn't cheating. Jamie wasn't even considering it. Jamie was being a loving, thoughtful partner, whilst I was systematically dismantling their life because ID convinced myself of a betrayal that never happened. The shame of that realization has been absolutely crushing. I destroyed a 4-year relationship, damaged someone I loved deeply, caused pain to dozens of people, and revealed myself to be petty, cruel, and cowardly. And for what? Because I saw them laugh with someone and immediately jumped to the worst possible conclusion. Because I was too proud or too insecure to simply ask what was going on. I've tried to apologize, of course. I've sent long messages to Jamie explaining everything, taking full responsibility, begging for a chance to make amends. They've never been read. I've apologized to friends who'll still speak to me, though those conversations have been awkward and painful in ways I can't adequately describe. Some people have been sympathetic, suggesting therapy or anger management or meditation, but even their kindness feels tainted by pity. Most people have simply cut me off, and I can't blame them. Why would anyone want to maintain a friendship with someone who's proven themselves capable of such calculated cruelty? I think about that moment at Marcus' party constantly, that moment when I saw Jamie laughing with Alex and felt that first spike of jealousy. If I could go back, I'd walk over and join the conversation. I'd introduce myself to Alex properly, ask how they knew Jamie, probably discover within minutes that they were family. The whole nightmare would have been avoided with one simple, mature action. But instead, I let my worst instincts take control. I chose suspicion over trust, revenge over communication, destruction over love. And now, I'm living with consequences I fully deserve, but never properly anticipated. The therapy I've started has helped me understand some of what drove my behavior. Insecurity, obviously, fear of abandonment, a tendency to catastrophize and assume the worst, control issues that manifest as vindictive behavior when I feel threatened. None of this excuses what I did, but it at least helps me understand the person who did it. My therapist keeps saying that self-awareness is the first step towards change, and I'm trying to believe that. Trying to believe that I can become someone better than the person who sent those messages. But honestly, most days I just feel tired of hating myself, tired of replaying those weeks in my mind, tired of wondering if I'll ever be able to rebuild any semblance of the life I had before. I've had to move to a different area of town. Too many people knew what I'd done in our old neighborhood, and the stares and whispered conversations became unbearable. I see Jamie occasionally. London's not quite big enough to avoid someone completely, and each time it feels like being punched in the chest. They look tired, older somehow, though it's only been a few months. They never acknowledge me, just look through me like I'm a stranger, which I suppose I am now. The person they loved doesn't exist anymore, if they ever really did. Maybe ID always had this capacity for cruelty, and had simply never been tested before. Maybe the real me was the person who planned that revenge, and everything before was the performance. I don't know anymore. What I do know is that revenge doesn't feel the way you imagine it will. In films, in books, when the wronged party gets their comeuppance, Therese supposed to be satisfaction, catharsis, a sense that justice has been served and balance restored. But real revenge doesn't work that way. Real revenge is watching someone you love suffer because of choices you made. Real revenge is seeing the hurt spread outward, like ripples in a pond, affecting people you never intended to harm. Real revenge is recognizing too late that you've become the villain in your own story. And real revenge is living with the knowledge that you can never undo what you've done, no matter how desperately you want to. People ask me sometimes, the few who still speak to me, whether I've learned anything from all this, and the honest answer is yes, though the lessons came at a price I never wanted to pay. I've learned that assumptions are dangerous, that communication is everything, that trust once broken is nearly impossible to rebuild. I've learned that revenge is just pain you inflict on yourself as much as anyone else. I've learned that the person you can become when you're hurt and angry is often worse than anything that hurt or angered you in the first place. And I've learned that some mistakes are so profound, so damaging, that sorry will never be enough. If I could speak to Jamie now, properly speak to them, I'd tell them I understand why they can't forgive me. I'd tell them they deserve someone better, someone who won't let jealousy poison everything good between them. I'd tell them I'm sorry, not just for what I did, but for who I revealed myself to be. I'd tell them that they were right to walk away, that staying would have only brought more pain. But most of all, I'd tell them that they weren't the problem. They never were. The problem was always me. My insecurity, my pride, my cowardice, my cruelty. And whilst I can't change what I did, I can at least take full responsibility for it. These days, I'm trying to be better, not for redemption, because I don't think I deserve that, but because I owe it to everyone I hurt to at least try. I'm in therapy twice a week. I'm reading everything I can about emotional regulation and healthy communication. I'm volunteering at a local charity, trying to put some good back into the world to balance out the harm I caused. It's not enough. It'll never be enough, but it's something. And on the days when the guilt and shame feel unbearable, when I'm tempted to contact Jamie despite knowing I shouldn't, I remind myself of what my therapist said. The best apology is changed behavior, not words, not explanations, not justifications, just being better, doing better, becoming someone who would never make those same choices again. I don't know if I'll ever have another serious relationship. Honestly, I'm not sure I should. What I'm capable of when I feel threatened or insecure, that's not something I'd want to inflict on anyone else, until I'm absolutely certain I've changed. And even then, the thought of being vulnerable with someone, of risking that kind of hurt again, terrifies me. It's easier to stay alone, to focus on work and therapy and trying to rebuild some sense of self-worth that doesn't depend on anyone else's validation. Maybe that's cowardice too. Maybe that's just another way of avoiding discomfort rather than facing it. I honestly don't know anymore. What I do know is that I caught them flirting, or thought I did, and my response to that moment of perceived betrayal destroyed everything I valued. My relationship, my friendships, my reputation, my self-respect. All gone because I chose revenge over trust, destruction over love, pride over humility. And whilst I can't undo any of it, whilst I have to live with what I've done for the rest of my life, I can at least share this story as a warning to anyone reading this who's ever felt that surge of jealousy, that desire for revenge, that certainty that you're justified in whatever you're planning. Please, stop, take a breath. Talk to the person you're angry with. Give them a chance to explain. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't become the villain in your own story. Don't ruin everything because you're too proud or too hurt to simply ask what's really going on. Because once you've done it, once you've pressed send or made that phone call or set your plan in motion, you can't take it back, and you'll have to live with yourself as the person who did that thing. Trust me, it's a harder existence than you can possibly imagine.